Today's build is this little kit. Quite an interesting kit this, very few components on it. Got a power cable for USB here, a couple of capacitors, one resistor, some nuts and bolts, one IC, a USB connection, and the circuit board is quite interesting as well. Now on the circuit board, as you can see, we've just got the IC there, resistor, capacitors and the USB connection there, but the LEDs, I've got 4 connections on them. So here's the LED itself. It looks quite normal from this side, but as you see from the back, it's got 4 connections, with one of the cables, one of the legs, being longer than the rest of them. Now this is an RGB, or red, green, blue LED, which means that you can power up the colours individually or mix them about to make different colours. On the circuit board, if we look at the circuit board, you will notice, we get it right, so here we go, it's easier to see on this side. So let me just focus in for you. There we go. So if you look at that, you'll notice that one of the connections for the LED is square. Let me see if I can point that out here. So that one there, for example, is square and the others are round. So the longest leg for the LED is a positive, and that will go into the hole where the square is. The other odd thing about this board is that normally we would do the surface mount, we do the resistors, capacitors, IC, etc. first before the LEDs. But as you can see underneath here, the LEDs actually go where the IC sits. So what we're going to have to do with this is mount the LEDs first. In fact, the LEDs go this side, and then once we've done the LEDs, then we mount the IC and the other components on the other side. So that's going to be quite interesting, because the resistor goes through and we're going to have to solder a leg in the middle of the LEDs, just there. The resistor goes between those 2 points. So hopefully it should be an interesting build. Let's see how it goes. Oh, one other thing, when we finish this, you'll see a little pad down here. So I think the idea of this little pad is when you touch it, the pattern changes, controlled by the IC here. So it's quite an interesting little kit this. Oh, also we'll mount it on this bit of perspex here, and that will stand something like that and hide all the components on the bottom. Right, so I've got it mounted in the vise. So let's see if we can get these a couple of these LEDs fitted in, and let's see how it fits in together. So I'm going to start in them on the outside, and don't forget the long leg goes to the square hole. Okay, that doesn't seem so bad. Let's get the others in. Okay, so that's got the first row, and now you'll notice that I'm pushing these down quite low to the board, but not quite on the board. So they're low, but not too low. Just making sure that they're all level, because the next row in, that when we start mounting these, are going to be that little bit higher. So that will roughly look, if I can get this in. So we'll mount that one, if you can see that, a little bit higher. So that'll be the inner row. And then finally, the very last one that we'll do, this one, when we get round to this one, will be the tallest. So that will look something like that when it's finally finished. So we'll come back to those later on. So that's what we'll do. We'll get the outer ones in first, and then the inner ones up. Right, so you just see me soldering up those legs very quickly. What I'm thinking of doing before I put the other LEDs on is just putting on the components here. I mean, the capacitors there and there, they should be fairly easy to solder in place. What I'm thinking of is this USB connection here, because if I get too many components on there, it might be a bit difficult to solder up. It's quite small. So this USB connection has two little locating pins underneath, there and there, which match up to the holes there and there. So I'm going to put a little dab of solder just on these pads here before I actually put this component on, just to make it easier for when we come to solder the actual component on in a moment. Right, that's got little dabs of solder on there. Okay, so that's got that on. So we're just going to solder that into place. Now I need something just to, yes, let's have a think about this for a second. Just going to get a bit of rag just to hold that on there so I don't burn my poor little fingers off. There we go. Right, so that's got that on, so we just need to very gently just solder those legs on the back. So you can see there it's quite small to solder that up. Right, I think I've got that. It's a bit of a jaunty angle, mind, but I think we've got that in place all right. Yep, that looks okay. We'll soon know when we power it up, see if it works or not. So first of all, we'll put in the capacitor that goes here, which is this one, and as you can see we've got a negative marking, and the legs themselves, one of them is longer than the other one, and the shorter one is marked with a negative. Now on here we've got a square and we've got a circle, and the square means it's positive. So what we have to do is put the longer cable, the longer leg, which is a positive, in there, and the shorter one, which is marked up the other side. So that will go in like that. And we've got another little capacitor to put in as well. It's one of these. Now on these, the legs are the same size and there's no markings on it, so it doesn't matter which way around it goes. Let's pop that one in. There we go. So what we can do now is solder those two in while we've got a bit of space to play with. Right, let's get those two in. So while we're here, let's get the resistor in. Now there's only one, so there's no need to test this one on the tester. Now also you have to be careful when we're soldering the LED, it's right close to that. Okay, so now we've got those components in. The next thing to do then is the rest of the LEDs. Right, I've nearly got all the LEDs on, just the one in the centre to do. I just wanted to show you that the first row we put in are quite low and the second row is a little bit higher, and then the centre one will be higher still. Just to recap, the resistor, 2 capacitors are on there, and the final thing we've got to do is the IC, which is going to be a bit fiddly because we're going to have to try and solder it down the centre there, so it's going to be a bit of fun. Okay, so let's get the last LED in. Okay, that's going to sit just above all the other LEDs. Right, so that's got all the LEDs done. So let's have a look at this IC. Well, this is the IC. It's arrived on a bit of sponge, so hopefully the legs shouldn't be too bad. Yep, they look nice and straight, so we'll just pop it in our leg straightener just to make sure that they're all nice and straight. That's it. And then we can pop that on the circuit board. Now, if you'll have a look, you'll notice there's a little indent just there on the circuit board. Let me just bring that a bit closer so you can see. So on the circuit board there's a little indent there. Hopefully you should be able to see that alright. And on the IC there's a little indent there as well. So that's making sure that we match that up. Okay, so it's not going to sit completely flat to the circuit board, because don't forget we've got the LEDs behind it. Let's have a look. So there is some pins sticking through, so we should be alright. So what we need to do then is to pop a bit of solder on a couple of the legs just to hold it in place. Okay, so I'll just put a blob of solder either end, and that's you just hold it in place. Okay, so that's got the legs this side done. So now I've got to get the legs in the middle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just very slightly bend these LEDs over. It should give us enough room to get in there. Now what's happened is we've got a slight problem. The IC, if you can see that, has gone at an angle. So the pins here are soldered okay, but inside the pins are almost not through the holes. That's going to cause us a problem when trying to solder. So what I'm going to have to do is desolder these and straighten out the IC. First of all, my apologies. I thought my camera was recording when in fact it wasn't, so you've missed a bit of it. So let me explain what I've done. I was trying to desolder these to straighten up the IC, but as you can see it's still at an angle. Just here, let me just turn it around a bit so you can see. There we go. Because these are through hole, the solder's gone all the way through. It's very difficult to unsolder. So what I've had to do, if you can see down here, I've just had to blob solder in there in the holes on the hope that they will actually connect to the pins. Now the pins look as if they're going through here, and the solder has in fact leaked through to the other side. So I'm hoping that they're all connected. It's going to be a bit of a wing and a prayer, but if not, I might be able to put a blob of solder this side just to double check to make sure that they are connected. But why don't we try it out and see what happens. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it means a bit of resoldering here and there. So let me switch off a couple of lights. There we go. We have got the lead that came with the kit, so plug that in. We'll use the bench power supply. Ooh. Now looks good. Now let's see if the little touchpad works. Yep. I think we can call that a successful build, even though it went a bit wrong. Right, now we've got it all working. We've got to put this Perspex board on as well. Now it fits underneath to protect the components like that. So what I'm going to have to do, I think, is bend the capacitor down slightly so the other components are about in line or level, and then we can screw this into place. So let's have a look at that now. So that's better. Right. Now this one goes in between the LEDs.